Construction of pattern for a pleated salwar. In the previous session, we identified the standard measurements required for making a salwar. In this session, we will see how to construct the pattern for a pleated salwar using a triangular scale based on drafting instructions. At the end of the session, you will be able to construct pattern for pleated salwar using a triangular scale. Let's first familiarize with the tools and materials required for doing this exercise. They are notebook, pencil, triangular scale, measuring tape, pattern and drafting instructions, fraction table, and scale. Now let's see how to draft the pattern for a pleated salwar in notebook using a triangular scale. In the previous session, we measured the different body measurements required for a pleated salwar. Note the measurements taken in your notebook. Here, the full length is 41 inches, hip circumference is 40 inches, and bottom width is 16 inches. From the drafting instructions, see if any fractions of the body measurements need to be taken. You can easily identify the divisions by checking the fractions written near the body measurement symbols. In this case, you need to find quarter and half of hip circumference and half of bottom width. For that, we will use a fraction table. Here, our hip circumference is 40 inches. So find 40 in the first column of your fraction table. Now keep the scale under 40 and find the first fraction, quarter of 40. Here, we get the value as 10. Next, we will find half of 40. We get the value here as 20. Next, we need to find half of bottom width. Bottom width is 16 inches. Half of 16 is 8. After finding all the fractions as per the drafting instructions, we will now copy all the drafting instructions in our notebook. But instead of fractions of body measurements, we will substitute the values that we have found using our fraction table. Now we need to find the sum of these values. We have already learned how to add numbers using a measuring tape. We will use the same technique here to find the sum. The next step is to draw the pattern of the pleated salwar in our notebook. We will use the triangular scale to draw the pattern in our notebook. Here, we are using the 1:9 scale to draw the pattern. As per our drafting instruction, first we will draw the line 01, which we have found out as 43.5 inches. Now we can draw the line 01, which is 43.5 inches. Then we can draw the next line 02, which is 1.5 inches. Follow the drafting instructions to construct the remaining lines. Thus, we have constructed the pattern for a pleated salwar in our notebook using a triangular scale. In this session, we have learned how to construct pattern for a pleated salwar using the triangular scale. Before we conclude, let's take a look at the key points. Step 1. Refer the drafting instructions to see which body measurements need to be taken. Note the measurements in your notebook. Step 2. Check the pattern instructions to see if you need to find out any fractions of the body measurements. If so, draw a table with all the fractions to be found out. Step 3. Use fraction table to find out the fractions of the body measurements. Step 4. Copy the drafting instructions in your notebook by substituting the values found out from the fraction table instead of fractions of body measurements. Step 5. Add the numbers if any. Step 6. Construct pattern in your notebook with the help of a triangular scale. With that, we've come to the end of this session.